Hello, everyone, and welcome to Cosmere Connections. We're a bunch of book-loving nerds rereading Brandon Sanderson's Cosmere series. From book 1 to book 16 million, we'll be uncovering every secret connection there is to find. Today, we are joined by Swiggity Swoo,
You have to be realistic, Ellen Venture.
John,
I hate you.
Kay,
Hello.
and I'm ReaderWarrior. And today, we're going to be covering Mistborn Hero of Ages, Part 1, Legacy of the Survivor, Chapters 5 through 8. We're just going to jump right into it. So I got chapter 5, and the epigraph, the top part goes like this. Each time Rashek tried to fix things, he made them worse. He had to change the world's plants to make them able to survive in the newly harsh environment. Yet that change left the plants less nutritious to humankind. Indeed, the falling ash would make the men sick, causing them to cough like those who spent too long mining beneath the earth. So Rashek changed humankind as well, altering them so that they may survive. Ellen and Vin do a quick field autopsy of the Inquisitor and try to figure out how it was able to move so fast. Vin finds an extra pewter spike in its chest. Ellen wonders how the spikes are tied to their powers. They talk about how Ruin and the Deepness are growing stronger. Vin takes a Koloss, human! Exclamation point, and has it carry the Inquisitor's body. They meet up with Phaetron and give him a brief explanation on Koloss before heading into the city. The three approach the ministry. Wow, my handwriting is absolutely dreadful.
Just really quick, I think his name is Phaetron.
Phaetron? Okay.
That's pretty important to me.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
I understand that. The three approach.
Actually, I quit the podcast. Don't contact me again. Just kidding. I'm sorry for interrupting you, man. I'm really sorry for interrupting you. Go ahead. Good.
The three approach the ministry building and find a trap door. They find the allomantic door in the cellar and together pull it down. Capital P. They find basic supplies and Ellen orders Phaetron to guard it. He plans to give it to them but has to ration it. Vin comments how forceful Ellen is now, and he says he's tired of the compromises and misses the idealist he used to be. And before moving on to the next point of view, what was Vin doing before this? What took Vin so long to get here?
They tell us.
Yeah.
Oh, I think it's in.
She went to Luthadel to check in on Penrod. That's what she was doing. She was in Luthadel checking in on Penrod, and she was on her way back to their
Camp?
Their camp. When Ellen found out that the Koloss were marching on the city, so he was like, I gotta go now in order to stop these Koloss from getting here. I'll leave a note for Vin, because I know she's coming back, to tell her where I'm going and to come meet me there. Like,
Okay, apparently I missed all of that.
yeah, they say it. They do say that.
Okay, I was too busy
I forgot to.
idolizing Ellen.
Understandably. So, though, I actually really like a line in this chapter describing that, how it's from Vin's POV, right? So it's like he had changed so much based on the things he was forced to endure. And, like, it made me think about all the crazy stuff that went down in Well of Ascension. And, like, you can just picture Ellen now with, like, somehow a squarer jaw even. Like, he's just, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Like those pictures of the before and after when they do it with, like, other characters. And they have them talk to each other.
A hardened Ellen.
Yeah. Vin misses that person too, but she thinks this new Ellen is more necessary for their current way of life. Ellen compliments the Lord Ruler's planning and discusses hope, or lack thereof. Vin says that this is all pointless and mocks the survivor. Ellen says he has hope they'll make it, and that is enough for her. They walk in deeper and find a message from the Lord Ruler inscribed in steel. For anything not said in steel cannot be trusted. It talks about malatium, the 11th metal. Ooh, we've got a name for that now. Similar to how previous ones talked about electrum and aluminum. Aluminium. There was also a map pointing to Phaedric City, Set City, and hope to find the ATM. And they hope to find the ATM cache there because they have not yet found it. Vin says it is important, like Allomancy itself. Ellen worries about how difficult taking Phaedrix will be, and he heads back upstairs, leaving Vin to read the few words at the bottom. Only your thoughts are safe.
Spooky.
Very, very ominous.
I got something for the spoiler section for this last part here, so I can't really bring it up.
Might do the
Yeah.
same thing, I'm thinking.
Yeah. Probably, huh? Is this the same chapter where they're talking about Ellen is asking like what how is it possible that there was a bead of metal that turned me into a Mistborn that was around before the Mistborn?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
This is that one.
Mm-hmm.
Another just another good little mystery, like kind of like as big as the world is. You know what I mean? Like I love in these books they'll just drop these little mysteries like, "Oh yeah, how did that get there?"
This chapter was pretty much like bringing up everything from Hero of Ages, in case you forgot.
Yeah, it really was kind of that big recap chapter. A lot of these kind of are just setting the scene, like the first 6 or 7 of them.
Mm-hmm.
It's important
And-
every now and again.
Yeah. Especially because like Hero of Ages didn't really do a bunch of recap, really. It was just like we killed the Lord Ruler, now here's all the stuff we now have to deal with, and it was more set up towards Well of Ascension and also Hero of Ages. Whilst Hero of Ages can now look back on that. Because technically, if you look back, a lot of things happen in that book. Anything else for this chapter? Okay, then, Swiggity, you can have your page.
This is the longest chapter of the book right here.
Uh-huh.
Chapter 6, literally a page and a half. I'm going to spend more time on this epigraph. Rashek soon found a balance in the changes he made to the world, which was fortunate, for his powers burned away quickly. Though the power he held seemed immense to him, it was in truth a tiny fraction of something much greater. Of course, he did end up naming himself the Sliver of Infinity in his religion. Perhaps he understood more than I give him credit for. In any case, we had him to thank for a world without flowers, where plants grew brown rather than green, and where people could survive in an environment where ash fell from the sky on a regular basis.
Thank you, Lord Ruler.
Yeah,
So,
thanks a lot.
basically, this is a Marsh POV. It's very brief, but it's kind of describing how the world seems like a beautiful place to him, even though it's like ash falling from the sky and the mists are lingering so long that crops are dying and all this terrible stuff is happening. Like, ruin just has such a hold on him and all of the other Inquisitors that, like, he literally sees the world and thinks it's a beautiful place that he's meant to live in.
Yeah.
And, like, all the other Inquisitors are the same way, apparently.
And this has always been a bug for me in these near omnipotent beings. But like, Marsh is semi-free. His mind is free at moments, but then he starts to fight back, and then he gets taken over, even though Ruin is not looking at him. So does that mean that whenever Marsh acts upon doing something, or whenever he thinks about something?
Whenever he acts upon doing something. So it's the same thing with the Koloss, like how Vin controls the Koloss, where, like, she's not actively controlling them necessarily, but, like, if they act and they try to do something that they're not supposed to do, they won't be able to do that. But they still have their own mind.
So do you think when, in a hypothetical, if one of the Koloss was able to like do something, would there be like an alarm in Vin's head that goes off?
She would feel it.
I was like picturing it like a tugging, like a psychic tugging
Mhm.
sensation. You know, like, oh, it's trying to break free of my like
Gotcha.
control on it.
Okay.
Like,
Which is weird because, oh, go ahead.
I would say, well, this is a little bit. So, like in John's chapter 8, it talks about how Vin can feel her Koloss like trying to fight against her.
Mm.
Like she can feel him resisting that the command to not attack her. Like she can feel that he like is trying to attack her, but he is physically unable to. So I think it's similar to that, where it's like Rowan doesn't have to put all of his attention on like one Inquisitor to like, but he can put general like, you're not allowed to do any of this stuff. And it's like, and if he feels one of the Inquisitors trying to do something that he's not allowed to do, then he can go check on them.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So it is really interesting stuff. Like for a really short chapter, it is kind of like, it's interesting to hear about how like this giant godlike force, you know, what that would be like if it was controlling your mind, I guess.
Yeah.
We do learn something else in this chapter. We learn that the Inquisitors have new spikes. Some driven between Marsh's ribs, others down his chest. And apparently these were hidden from the Inquisitors by the Lord Ruler because he wanted to be able to control them, right? He wanted to have the power over them in case he ever needed to, you know, silence them for some reason.
Mm-hmm. So the Lord Ruler made contingencies. He has the I can control you if I need to contingency. He has the you won't have as much power as me contingency, and the linchpin contingency. So Lord Ruler, even though was really careful about his creation of these, especially compared to the other ones.
Like tracks with like the food stores and stuff too. Like it kind of makes you think, because we saw him at the end of his reign in the Final Empire, where I assume he was going a bit crazy. But like at the beginning of this, he had all these provisions and all these crazy
This whole
stuff he was
time
doing.
we've been saying Vin was Batman. Was it actually the Lord Ruler?
So by the end of this chapter, he's just fully back into brainwash mode. He reminisces about never being able to break free, and it's kind of sad. But not much happens else than that.
Poor Marsh.
Okay, chapter 7.
You're really excited.
I've got my Tensoon, who's switched in his skeleton form right now.
His true-bodied form.
His true-bodied form. So we.
I was gonna say they gave him bones would have been a cool like podcast intro this week.
Oh. Yeah.
It's like the first words of this chapter.
So they gave Tensoon bones, and he quickly forms a body much faster than the 5th generation Kandra who gave him the bones expecting him to, and much better than they were expecting him to. Because to the point where one of the 5th generation was like thought that Tensoon had originally digested the body that bit those bones.
Yeah, I love that. They give it to him and he's like, whoa, that's a coincidence. You must have had these before, huh? That was quick. And he's like, no, I'm just fast, dude.
I'm just that good.
Yeah.
Suck it.
I've never seen these bones in my life.
Yeah. I love his line where he's like, the second generation is unpracticed. They assume that just because it takes them many hours to create a body, the rest of us require the same amount of time. Like, just because the second generation have been sitting on their asses this entire time doesn't mean the rest of us have.
Just because you guys ruined the housing market doesn't mean we're going to.
Wow.
I was
shots
waiting.
Fired.
I was waiting for that
Dang.
because that's what the Kandra storyline is going to be. It's the previous literal generation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we get to learn a little bit more about the Kandra. So we learn that the third generation, which Tensoon is part of, have always been the outsiders. Like, they haven't really fit in with Kandra society very well, and they are generally the ones who are always out on contracts in the human world. They spend very little time in the home because, at least from Tensoon's point of view, he's like, because the second generation don't want them around. Because the third generation are too close in power to the second generation. It's like the second generation is here, the third generation is like right here. And they want them to be down here.
So it's like if you get rid of the middle class, you can just rule over everyone?
Wow.
Yeah.
Stop being so
wild, dude.
poignant.
I'm sorry.
It hurts.
How dare you connect this fictional story to real world problems?
Brandon's a good author, okay?
So Tensoon is taken through the hallways by the 5th generation Kandra. And he is taken to something that is called the Trust Warren, which is, he says, is their most sacred, most holy place. That's kind of all we know about it. That's where the chapter ends. So there are a couple things that we learn, other things that we learn throughout this chapter. And we learn a little bit more about how the Kandra operate within the homeland. So most of the Kandra who live in the homeland for longer periods of time will commission what they call true bodies, which are made out of different materials that are in the shape of humans, human bones, humanish. Well, yeah.
You're getting there. I know.
Humanoid.
So is it
They
like
are in the shape of human that we know of right now. They are in the shape of humans.
Bipedal, yes.
But instead of having their skin be opaque, or that you can't see the bones underneath, they make their skin clear so that you can see their skeletons and their bones underneath.
They turn the opacity to 0.
Mm-hmm. And
so
he also notes that the Kandra wear very little clothing as a way to show off their true bodies.
naturally? So the true body itself is technically just like a set of bones, right?
Yeah.
It's a set of bones made out of stone or glass or crystal.
Or wood.
But I thought the whole point of the bones was that they used the information to construct the
They get
muscles
that
and
from
stuff.
digesting the body. So when they digest lungs, they know how to make the lungs. The bones is just how they can't form the bones fluidly like they can all the muscles. So they use the bones to form the muscles and the organs and stuff around.
The bones are the dollars?
Sure.
But
So
that must be young people speak.
But it also means they can form their selves. They can design, this is how I want my skull to look like, not basing it off of somebody else's. Which I gotta wonder.
That makes sense.
Which I gotta wonder if you have somebody who gets plastic surgery, and they digest that person, would it look like the before or after?
The after. It's the physical thing. Excuse me, that they are copying.
Oh, so they're not. So you don't think they're like digesting the DNA itself and like
No.
using that as like a blueprint? You think they're like each muscle that it's actually digesting, it's like the
Yes.
physical.
And we know that because they also cannot recreate hair, and they talk about having to place the hair just so, and it's very difficult and time consuming.
The other thing I wanted to say was Shape of Human sounds like a prog album.
The other thing that I wanted to note is we learn a little bit more about the Kandra blessings in this chapter, and that they are made out of metal.
In Mistborn? No. Sorry.
That the Kandra blessings are also made out of metal.
We got the Blessing of Potency,
Mm-hmm.
which is... I'll save what it is for the spoiler section. Just to be safe. Just to be safe.
I think that they talk about it in this chapter.
I'm trying to search right now to see if it's.
I know what it
spells
is.
out.
Okay, I'll just say it. It's not that big. It's iron. It's made from iron and gives you increased strength.
Yeah,
I don't think
know
that's...
they-
I don't
they
think
don't
that's too
say
big of
what
a
it's-
reveal.
Yeah, they don't say what it's made out of, but it does. I guess they don't really say a whole lot about it in this chapter.
I don't think it's
I have
that
a
too
question.
big of a reveal.
Also, we do learn that the mist wraiths, the Kandra refer to them as the unbirthed.
I liked how Tensoon refers to the 5th generation from the 2nd generation as their favored pups.
Yeah.
I guess spending all those days as a dog really affected him.
I guess like so. I'm kind of remembering all this. A lot of this is coming back to me, and so if this is gonna be spoiler talk, just be like, hey, we'll talk about that later. But
Well, let's just talk about it later just to be safe. I feel like I already spoiled something.
I just wanted to say that I don't know. Yeah, I guess we'll talk about it later. Seems like maybe the next generations are chosen based on a line in this chapter. That's what it says. The 11th generation must have been chosen by now.
Yes, the 11th generation had already been chosen.
So that's like a hint, I guess. I don't really remember how they're fully made, so.
Okay.
Yes, we'll learn about that later on in the book.
Anything else for chapter 7? Kay, did you read your epigraph?
Do I need to?
Yes.
I don't think I need to. And I don't think we need to, especially because weren't you saying that we needed to do this faster?
Yes, I speak of us as we, the group, those who were trying to discover and defeat Ruin. Perhaps my thoughts are now tainted, but I like to look back and see the sum of what we were doing as a single united assault. Though we were all involved in different processes and plans, we were one that didn't stop the world from ending, but that's not necessarily a bad thing.
Okay, really quick. Does anyone have a theory on why, or if this gets spoiled, just tell me it gets spoiled later. But does anyone have an idea, like, why do the Contra have human bodies when they could be like birds and like they could be anything they want? Why do they pick humans?
It's just a matter of mindset. We say we're better than them, but we still model ourselves after them.
I have a theory. I'll tell you later, Swiggity. Save that. Remind me in the spoiler section, and I will tell you.
All right.
Yep. Spoiler section.
Well,
yeah.
Okay.
Come back to the spoiler section for this one, I guess.
Okay. Well, chapter 8, John, you've been waiting 2 to 3 books to get to this chapter.
Yes.
There you go.
It is too easy for people to characterize Ruin as simply a force of destruction. Think, rather, of Ruin as intelligent decay. Not simply chaos, but a force that sought in a rational and dangerous way to break everything down to its most basic forms. Ruin could plan and carefully plot, knowing if he built one thing up, he could use it to knock down 2 others. The nature of the world is that when we create something, we often destroy something else in the process.
Real quickly,
Ooh.
I love that so much that because you often get like 2 gods, creation and destruction. Creation can only create, destruction can only destroy. But I like that there's an establishment here. Ruin can create something if it leads to more destruction. I like that. I think that does a complete cliche avoidance from a lot of classic fantasy books.
I'm just thinking of examples in the book of like, oh, what has Ruin maybe cultivated that ended in things getting ruined, you know? That's so interesting to think about. Like for like
Here's one that we don't necessarily need to spoil anything for, but like with the Inquisitors, like making them more powerful. He's creating more powerful Inquisitors so that the Inquisitors can then go and destroy things throughout the world.
Yeah.
I guess he was I mean like technically like taking the power at the well and like
All
he
of
was kind of
that
like
tricking
yeah.
Vin into doing it, that was all building up
that was building her up to be the hero of ages, right?
Mm-hmm.
just to release the mother of all living embodiment of TNT.
So, Vin and Ellen force the citizens of the Titan to expose themselves to the mists. 100 of the citizens are killed in the process. They do this because they need to move the populace to Luthadel. The mists seem to be choosing people at random to inflict seizures on. They don't seem to affect animals at all, but humans would be affected about 1 in 6. Only a small number of those die, and once exposed for the first time, the mist would never take someone a second time. Vin hates the mist now and speculates she can see things in them.
But it's like a vaccine. In 500 years, they're going to claim it caused autism.
Oh.
I can match Swiggity.
No, not gonna.
Yeah.
There
you go.
But yes, they even go so far as to say, I think it's Ellen says, your people need to be inoculated. So, I mean, the reality is there.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see.
The truth doesn't make it any easier.
Right. Ellen and Fatrin debate whether this was necessary at all. Vin thinks they are murderers, despite knowing the reasons why it had to be done. In the end, they have Koloss carry the sick to barges and begin the journey back to Luthadel. Ben then decides to try and gain some understanding of the Koloss, and we finally meet Human. Her single Koloss. Human tells her not to look at him because she doesn't think he's human. He says he will be human. They will kill all the humans and take their cities, and then they will be human. Somebody just rang my doorbell.
It's Human. He's here.
It's also 9:45.
It's your chapter. You decide if you want to pause or not.
No, my aunt's upstairs. She's taking care of it. Where was I? Right. So he says they will kill the humans and take their cities, and then they will be human. When Ven asks what the Koloss name is, he says, "My name is Human. You will call me Human." Ven asks about his age, and Human says, "Don't you see my bigness?" Ven asks about girl Koloss, but this confuses Human, so she asks about baby Koloss. This also sort of confuses Human, and he points to the smaller Koloss in the army. She asks where new Koloss come from. Human says new Koloss come from us, and Vin thinks about it for a while before she's distracted by something else, and she shoots off on a steel push. Ellen is talking to Demoux, who they have come across on their way back to the barges, I guess. They are bivouacked in a fortified camp waiting for the Koloss, and Ellen and Vin. Ellen passes off Fatrin to Demoux and Penrod. since he and Vin are off to Fadrix to recover the last cavern. Before he leaves, he offers the townfolk a place in the army, but does not compel them. And he gives a small little speech about compulsion and how people who are compelled to do a thing never quite do it wholeheartedly.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the chapter.
I love
But yeah.
what are you? I am human. That is, and his name is, that's great. That's great wordplay.
When I first read this book, this chapter instantly made me like, yes, this is awesome. Like, I did a little happy dance.
So is this where you fell in love with human, or does it happen down the line?
I think I really started to love human as a character because he was the inadvertent bad guy, if that makes any kind of sense. Like, he was the representation of this, like, previously sort of semi-faceless mob of horrifying creatures, and now all of a sudden they're not so horrifying. They're like, they have motivation and personality of sorts. They're just misunderstood.
Yeah, I remember just being like, first kind of amazed that one of them was talking, and then like flabbergasted that they thought they were humans, and then when he like basically outwits Vin, it's awesome. It's like, I just never expected that, and it's honestly it's delightful.
It really is.
Because like there's
And then,
always
of course,
been. Sorry.
I was just saying, and then of course he says he hates her, and then he's going to kill the humans, and they're going to take their clothes and their buildings, and then they'll be human.
Like you do.
Angry monsters.
Which that was what I was going to say. There's always been the cliche of the big monster, it's evil, and now there's like the anti-cliche of it being, oh, it's actually really sophisticated, but it's still the giant brute. But Sanderson has done like this strange sort of middle ground where you've got a creature that has all the violence of the bloodthirsty creature, but it's like stepping towards sophistication. It's gotten wordplay.
And it's like from Well of Ascension, you never expect to kind of feel like bad for a Koloss in your life. Or like sympathize with it a little bit.
Yeah. Great seeing Demoux again, though.
Yes, just briefly.
How do you guys feel about Demoux?
He's
like,
just
up until
he's always just been kind of there, right?
He's like honorary. He's like the honorary crew member sidekick.
He's like the fanboy.
Yeah.
Kind of.
I don't know. I was just reading this chapter. I got this feeling like we're supposed to be like, oh, Demoux, he's not grown up, but I don't know. didn't quite click.
He's partly there as a gauge for the spread of survivorism. Because Vin in this chapter, and I didn't make a big note of it, kind of talks about a little bit the spear that Ellen, or maybe the spear that Demoux is wearing, and which spear is it, and
is it the spear she used, or is it the spear Kelsier died by?
Right.
Why not both?
And I think
there's only one of them.
Demoux is also there to be like, oh, this was a person who was back in book 1 in the army, and he's still a part of this. He's been working for this group and being very loyal to Kelsier and to Kelsier's crew throughout this entire time, and it's like, oh look, he's still there. He's still hanging out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I get that. He was kind of just a little just a little chap who was a little too zealous back in the day, and now he's like this hardened.
He was a
like,
tool,
general.
is what he was. He was a tool
Yeah.
back in the day.
Literally.
Now he's
can
one
we-
of the top men.
Talking about the Choice of Survivor, I did notice that like Elend has been saying so much stuff like pro Kelsier, so much like, oh, we just have to have hope, we just have to survive, and then she is like so against that now. That is just something I thought was so interesting, like in these chapters.
So I gotta wonder if survivorism. Great.
I'm sorry, I couldn't help it.
No, we're keeping it. I've got to wonder if survivorism was going to turn into this, or is it just a matter of this is how the world is and this is what it needs to become?
Say that again?
So, like, Kelsier's doctrine was survive. That was the basis, sort of what the religion was. Which, Kelsier had to die in order to do that. Kind of the move of anti-survival. But
I don't think Kelsier had any idea where his religion was going to go.
True. Well, like,
Do I look like a guy with a plan to you?
do I look like? I'm just a dog. Chasing after
I'm gonna make this coin disappear.
But like, I gotta wonder, how would the religion have changed if now, like, okay, they founded the Final Empire in Elend's image, and that was it. Everything went perfect from that point. Versus how it is now, where it's basically, we've got to survive, we've got to be able to withstand Ruin's assault on our people, we've got to conquer this area so that we can all survive. I gotta wonder how the religion, would it have come this way?
That's a good question. It's kind of like impossible to know, right? Because the whole reason it started, like, was people being worried about like the increased mists, right? Or like, what were they actually worried about? They were worried about the armies coming to get them, which would have happened anyways if Kelsier had lived, I think.
Yeah. Possibly.
So I think no matter what, it would have been happening that way. Like, even if Elend had taken control and everything would have been perfect, like, the Ska have lived in Kelsier's lifetime. That impact that he had, they are firsthand witnesses to. And, like, maybe they wouldn't have as many things to survive, but I think that impact would carry on, like, and build and build.
I mean, the religion's 2 years old maximum. So, like, and it's like the first real religion in thousands of years. Fascinating.
It's 3 years old.
Yeah. We should not argue the timeline again.
Because pretty much Kay's just gonna win it.
Yes. I'm tired of losing. One day I'll beat her.
It really would depend on when exactly was the religion founded. Like,
Yeah.
was it the night of what do they call it? The night of tears or something? Where
Kelsier died.
yeah.
Is that a thing? I've never heard that.
They referred to it at some point.
Yeah, they make a reference to it at some point. I'm not sure exactly where. It might be in this book later on, and I just put that out there. Apologies if that's the case. But anyway.
I'm sorry, but can I make a joke? What if they referred to it as the Sanderlanche?
Well, it was just from 2 books ago.
But it was like the first Cosmere. It was like the first Sanderlanche. So
No.
I don't know. It would be appropriate, right?
No.
Oh no, Elantris did come out first,
Yeah,
right?
Elantris was first.
Take it back.
Nice try.
Fake fan.
Nice try.
Maybe
Don't
someday
don't
we'll-
argue with Kay on the timeline, people.
So, anyway,
Okay. Anything else for this chapter then? Or are we all good?
I've derailed us enough.
I want to kill you.
Okay, then. Well,
Good.
okay. Well, next time we're going to be covering the final 5 chapters of part 1, so chapters 9 through 13. 9, 10, 11, 12. Yeah, 13. I don't know if anybody has dibs on those. Kay, there are 2 Kandra chapters. You're going to have to pick one. Or are you taking both? Who knows? But it is time to head into the spoiler realm. So if you have not finished this book, the entire series, or potentially the entire Cosmere, then we recommend that you stop here because it is likely we will talk about everything and anything. But if you are up to date, feel free to stick around because it is likely that we will bring up details you may have missed or plot threads that are still yet to come. Do not forget to subscribe, leave a like, star, heart, or whatever it is on this podcast, and don't be afraid to comment your own thoughts and predictions. We would love to hear from you. But this is where we must part, and my name is Reader, and I have been joined by Swiggity Swoo.
Sometimes I wonder I'm not the podcaster people think I am.
Sean.
You are big inside.
And Kay.
I like these bones.
And don't
I like
forget,
big bones and I cannot lie. Let's get
there's
Okay,
always
sorry.
another connection.
You are big inside. I like that. I like that phrase. Like you are big inside. You know, like
Yeah.
the way you said it too, with like it's kind of Latin accent. It's just like picture like a rugged guy named Sergio or something like this. You may be small, but you are big inside.
Oh, yes.
It's turned more Russian than like Latin.
That's okay.
Okay. Coming back in anybody need a break?
No, I
Okay,
think I'm good.
Back in 3, 2, and we're back. So, Kay, you wanted to mention something about the Kandra?
The Kandra, so Swiggity Kandra. Why do
We lost you for a minute there.
So Swiggity was asking, why do the Kandra make it look like humans? Why do they model us after humans? I think it's because subconsciously they kind of remember when they were human, because when the Lord Ruler, when Rashek took up the power at the Well of Ascension, one of the things that he did was turn all of the pyrochemists into mistrains.
Whoa.
Which, I've got to build on that really quickly. Do we think that the bones they have commissioned, subconsciously, they designed them to look like their old bodies?
No, because those mistrains are not the same mistrains, because they bred.
Yeah.
They've been breeding throughout the years and dying off and...
Quick question then, so the first generation are Rashek's friends?
Correct.
And the second generation, could those be from people they knew?
I would say no, because each generation is created every 100 years.
Okay.
That's why the current generation is the 11th generation.
So they created the Kandra 1100 years ago.
Well, 1,000 years ago, because the first Kandra, first generation were
True.
created at 0.
Yeah. So they're the zeroth generation.
Second generation were created at like 100. their generation were created at like 2,
Gotcha.
so on and so forth.
Okay.
And are the bones their money?
I think it's a completely socialist economy.
I just wondering if the bones are their money. I don't know.
I don't get the reference. I'm
How,
sorry.
Do they get paid? Do they get paid in like ATM? Like
Yes.
that's how they get paid, right?
Yes.
Yeah, but they just
Okay.
put it in the pile
In the
just
trust.
in
And then-
case.
In the trust warrant.
Okay. I was curious about that. Like,
Okay, let's come back to the Kandra chapter.
That's where
Uh,
we're at right now. We're still
we have
talking about the Kandra.
But we have chapter 6. We have my chapter. Wait, we have chapter 5. We have my chapter, and then chapter 6.
oh, you're saying
Oh,
come back from the Kandra chapter?
I'm saying
I
let's-
thought you were saying come back to the like focus in more on the Kandra chapter. That's what I thought you were saying.
No,
So
I'm
I
saying
was like, what do you mean? I was like, we're still talking about the Kandra chapter.
No, I'm saying go back to chapter 5, and then we can come back to. I'm very OCD. Can you not tell?
Oh, so you mean go back to later? Because I thought you meant like go back to now. But I was like, we're already here, man. Oh.
Yeah.
What in the space balls are you referring to?
And the bones are their money, though, right?
No.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Okay, so
Uh,
chapter 5 had one line, and Swiggity, you wanted to mention it too about the only your thoughts are safe. Swiggity, I'll let you go first because you might have the
That
same
is
thought as me.
actually not what I was going to reference. So I'll let you go ahead. That's interesting.
Well, I was basically going to say, isn't Roshek wrong here? Their thoughts aren't safe. Preservation can just peek in at any time.
But they're safe from ruin. Preservation
Hmm.
isn't the issue.
He could have done a better job.
Well, he tried very hard. He made it last.
He couldn't
this
have given
long.
Hoyt a ring?
Made it last this long. He's been working hard. Listen.
I was going to say Vin seems to think the A-team is more important than Ellen does. Is that because she's always wearing that earring
Yes!
and
This is
constantly being
actually-
influenced?
This is actually one of my favorite little things, which I don't think is actually really brought up. The whole concept of hemalurgy was just hinted at this very quickly by Ellen and then gets brushed off by Vin. I think Ruin is also slightly trying to push her away from that thought so that she doesn't realize. And that's why Ellen comes to the conclusion about hemalurgy when Vin is not there.
Because Ruin doesn't know what Ellen is doing. He
Exactly.
doesn't have like a spike in him. Oh, that's clever.
But he does try
He
later.
tries.
Well, no, he tried earlier.
Yeah, because that Inquisitor had a spike.
And tried to.
Oh,
set
I'm
it
thinking
on.
of Penrod. I'm sorry.
Yeah, he gets Penrod.
Yeah, he does get Penrod.
Penrod gets pin cushioned.
Pincushion Penrod. That's a new screen name. It's up for grabs.
First
Anything
come,
else
first
for anything else for chapter 5? Okay, chapter 6, which has the reference of slivers, which I
Does.
believe back in the Final Empire we had a whole argument on whether or not Lord Ruler was aware of it.
The answer is yes.
Well, is it yes because of a wob, or is it yes because it's highly likely?
I think it's yes because it's highly likely.
Okay. Well, I mean, I can agree with that. Although I think it's more likely that because he called himself that, the phrase stuck. Like that just became the nomenclature. I don't think it had necessarily a term for what he was before that.
Is anyone currently looking it up right now?
No,
Okay.
I don't think we need.
Um,
Slivers are more of a Stormlight Archive thing.
can someone explain to me what a sliver is And if you can't, that's totally fine.
So a sliver is a person who has held part or all of the power of a shard, but no longer holds that power.
Okay. And that's different from a splinter.
Yes, that is different from a splinter. A splinter is a piece of a shard that has been broken off. So, for example, the Stormfather is a splinter.
Well,
Thank you for
all
explaining
Spren
that
would
to
be.
me.
Also,
Yeah.
That just blew.
Whilst-
That just like blew my mind.
whilst Dalinar is a sliver.
No.
He ascended
No.
briefly.
No.
He ascended.
No.
No, he never
No.
held honor because honor had already splintered.
Yeah.
He just is
Odium
able to.
directly says he ascends.
No.
No, he is merely able to summon honor's perpendicularity.
He says ascends. I
No,
could
he
swear in the...
Find me a page number, sir.
I don't have the book. All my books have been boxed up. In the epilogue of Oathbringer, when he's talking to Taravangian, he says, I did not foresee Dalinar ascending.
I
I do
think he
remember
means
this.
He means
ascending as in
into-
becoming the king of Urithiru. Like
I think he's referring... It's a capital A. And it's referring to the events that just happened.
Okay.
Okay. This is why we need to focus on Mistborn.
Well, I just want to. There's no like honors pool, right? Like his power isn't pooled up somewhere for anyone to ascend. Like that's probably as close as you're gonna get, right?
Well, his perpendicularity is the high storm.
he's been splintered.
No, it's not.
Ben-
Shoot.
No, it's not. He's been splintered. Honor has been splintered. There is no one, like, his source is not in a pool anywhere. It is not condensed anywhere because Odium splintered it.
So that's what I'm saying is like that's probably the closest you can get to ascending the shard of honor at this point is being the bondsmith and like bringing that perpendicularity to you.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, but it is still not. Dalinar would still not be a sliver, also because of the fact that he did not have the power and then release it.
Oh,
That tracks
And
because
then
like
no longer
Hold,
have
please.
the power.
because everyone who ascends like gets knowledge of the power, right? Like Vin had and
So,
Well, technically, Vin ascended and stayed ascended.
yeah. So, the Lord Ruler was a splinter. Kelsier is a splinter, is a sliver. Those are both slivers because they both held a significant portion of the power of preservation and then are still alive afterward and then don't anymore.
so I think this would be really interesting. Reader, you've been saying like before the Lord Ruler ascended, you think maybe there was like, you know, planet hopping going on and there was like more modern technology that got buried. What if he called himself a sliver of infinity because he did know, because people knew about Adenalcium? What if he did actually know and he was calling himself that purposefully?
I like that. Possibly. Because we've got to understand that this is not being written by somebody who is aware of all. This is not Hoyd writing it. It is somebody. It is Sazed who has to deal with the fact that we've lost 2,000 years of information.
Oh, this is interesting. Side note, this is interesting. So I was incorrect. Stormfather is technically a sliver because when Tanavast died, he left a cognitive shadow that merged with the Stormfather.
Oh.
Whoa.
Kelsier is also a sliver of preservation. Do-do-do-do-do-do.
so looking
My
at
TV
Dalinar's...
just turned on.
Somebody's messing you with you in IR.
It's like, what is happening?
So looking at Dalinar's page on Coppermind, his abilities are Bondsmith, Old Magic, and Shardbearer. That's it.
I've got on the same page Kay probably has up. Odium refers to Dalinar as having ascended after open honors perpendicularly at Battle of Thalen Field, but Dalinar's exact status after this event remains unclear. Dalinar may have become something like a sliver.
Okay, but like a sliver is not a sliver.
Like a sliver could be like a sliver.
But it's kind of it's more.
Okay. We'll come back to it. This might be the time where I'm finally right.
We'll know when Stormlight 7 comes out.
I'm rooting for you, reader.
Okay, I'm asking on Shardcast right now. I'm getting a small polling done. Okay.
Are there any spoilers for chapter 6?
Okay, anything else for this chapter? Let's reel it back in.
Push.
Because we've been stuck on the epigraph. We haven't even gotten to Marsh. How many spikes do we think Marsh has now? Like a dozen?
He's got 15, I think, by the end of this book.
Good on him.
Paying himself.
I think, if I am remembering that
Old
correctly.
items.
I'll take your word for it. All I wanted to bring up was the fact that Sazed, when he became Harmony, put a limit on how many spikes a person can have. So you can't have these types of Inquisitors anymore.
Do we know what those extra spikes do?
Just more powers.
Well, we know what one of them is. One of them is ferrochemic speed.
Oh, I was incorrect.
Right.
He has 22.
I thought it was like over 20.
Yeah.
That's
so
ridiculous.
He has.
Wow.
Almost all of them.
Yeah.
Well, at least
So-
both of the 10 basics.
We know for a fact that he has all of the 10 elementic powers. He has ferrochemical gold. He has
wouldn't even need-
atium.
He wouldn't
He
need
has-
bronze.
He has duralumin. He has ferrochemical pewter, steel, and atium. Those are the ones that we know that for a fact that he has. But he definitely has a lot more than that. And he probably has a considerable number of ferrochemical powers that we don't know. Like, that we don't know if he has or not, that aren't on this list.
Okay.
Gotcha. I was just kind of wondering if there was, like, in this book that we ever found out, like, what those spikes the Lord Ruler never gave to them were.
I think the
That
Lord
would be
Ruler
super
probably would have
interesting.
just done like the basic 10.
Yeah. But he
Mhm.
never gave them the speed.
So, the
Yeah.
ones that the Lord Ruler gave them was steel, iron, pewter, tin, brass, zinc, copper, bronze, atium, and ferrochemical gold.
I bet he was careful with giving them a ferrochemy.
He would only
Yeah.
give them gold so that they could heal because of the toll that all of those spikes take on your body,
Mm-hmm.
and so that they can stay alive longer.
Anything else for chapter 6? No. Chapter 7, the Kandra chapter.
We've pretty much talked mostly about this chapter. Is there anything else that people want to talk about?
Did you not see the reference? The named character? Palm?
Wait,
Yes.
what?
No.
Yes.
Oh my god,
Is
really?
she in this chapter?
I totally missed that.
Where is she?
She's
It's-
mentioned very briefly in passing.
Palm
She's
is
like,
probably out on a mission or something along that line.
Wait a second. Isn't Palm...
Bleeder? Lassie?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my god. That's wild.
This is one of those times. It wasn't this time. It was like once or twice before when I reread this that I had to put down the book and slam it against a table.
seems a bit
That
dramatic.
doesn't come back until, like, Mistborn 5.
Exactly.
That's
But it's the fact
crazy.
that Did Brandon create that and have in his mind? He didn't, because he had a whole other idea for Crazy. So that means he went back, was like, hey, that's a named character I never used. I'll bring them in now. Which is something I have to give him a lot of credit for.
It still works, still gets me. He didn't have to do that at all. He could have easily just made up a new Kandra name.
Exactly.
I love that stuff.
Okay, he's double checking.
I don't think it's in this chapter.
Oh, it is. I'm looking
I
at it
am
now.
100% positive.
It says, Varsal item. He was of the 5th generation, 2 centuries younger than Tensoon. Indeed, even among those of the 3rd generation, with scant exceptions, such as Pa'am, constantly sent out on personal missions.
That is a change. That is
Really?
a change. That is a change. That is a recent edition change, because in the edition that I have, it says he was of the 5th generation, 2 centuries younger than Tensoon. Indeed, even among those of the 3rd generation, few Kandra had as much experience with the outside world as Tensoon.
Whoa.
It is. There's even like hyphens on either side of it. Like, which is,
That is added
So,
in.
Brandon-
That's a change.
Okay. I have that version. I don't
That's
have
a
it out
retcon. That's a
I've been going-
retcon.
by the leatherbound edition, which is probably the most definitive. But that's
So-
still like a good retcon, though. That's a good little push in.
Yeah. That's why I was
Nah,
like, that
fake
wasn't in
Cosmere.
there. I was like, that was not, I didn't notice that in there, because I was like, that's not in there. It's like, there's no way that's in there.
well, there you go, folks. We just made a genuine discovery.
Yep.
So, I guess we gotta take back the cleverness on Brandon thing. We'll
Not
rescind
Not to
our
say that he isn't
compliment.
clever, but just not in this particular
Exactly.
way.
But think about when all the first generation books are gone, then we can claim he's clever.
Honestly, though, it is cool though. Like, they didn't have to go back and put that in book 3. Like, that's really cool.
Anything else for this chapter? We already talked a bit about it. I really just wanted to bring that up.
But the bones are their money, right?
No.
I get what you're referencing.
You'll get it later. It'll be hilarious.
Okay.
Not the bones, just they teeth. That's a Warhammer reference.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't get it. Stop referencing things I don't understand.
How dare you?
Well, get nerdy, all right? Come on.
Sorry, I don't want to get out my tape measure when I'm playing a game.
I am so lost. I am so lost.
Is that a thing you have to do in Warhammer?
Yeah. It's played on a 6x4 table, and movement is measured in inches.
I'm just gonna roll my D20 and I'll win.
No. Just lots and lots of D6.
Anything else for chapter 7? Okay, chapter 8, in which we've got a bit of preservation's plan there, where we see all the people snapping, where instead of 1/6, it's 1/16.
No, it is. It's 1/6. It's about 1 in every 6 people, which is about 16% of the population.
16%, that's what it was.
Yeah. Yeah.
In which those people will all become ATM mistings.
No.
No.
They become a misting of some sort. 1/16 of them, the ones who are struck most powerfully by the mist, are the ones that become ATM mistings. Those are the ones that sometimes die.
They're the ones who are
Gotcha.
sick for 16 days.
Ah, okay.
Right. Yes.
It's been a while. And the math was confusing when I read it a while ago. And the reason that the Koloss are getting smarter is because they're reusing spikes now. When the Lord Ruler would allow them to create new Koloss, he would give them new spikes. But since he's not here anymore, they're tearing off the skin and the spikes, putting that onto a new person, and a bit of the spiritual aspect is torn with it, and that basically builds up over time.
That's what he means when he says they come from us, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Strangely, the Koloss are very cosmerically and romantically aware.
It is kind of like a splint, a sliver. It's kind of like a little bit of a sliver of their own selves, if you think about it.
A splinter.
Here we go again.
Just leaves the call.
And I know I brought it up. I don't know if I brought it up in Final Empire Hero or in Well of Ascension, but Demoux will survive. We will never see Demoux die. He will have a happy ending.
Well,
I just feel like,
we see him in Stormlight.
Yep.
yeah.
'Cause- Sorry.
No, it's okay. I'm trying to remember a thing and blinking. Something about.
Well, basically, Demoux is a friend of Brandon Sanderson. He says, I'll give you a named character, and I promise they will have a happy ending. That's why Demoux will never die. And Kay's right.
And then
we did see them at the Pure Lake in Stormlight Archive as Thinker.
Yep.
The Way of Kings, which I just remember reading that and just being so lost.
Me
at the
too.
time.
Oh yeah, no, I was very confused at how we were supposed to make that connection when I first heard about it.
People were
interested to go back
complaining
now.
about Rhythm of War and how all the in between chapters are like directly connected to the book. And they're like, I miss the old ones where it was a bunch of weird things. And I'm like, I don't. It was so confusing. I remember you got these three people looking for somebody at the Pure Lake, and then you've got the hand of God rising out of the water. Why? Looking back now, I'll probably going forward, I'll probably enjoy it. But looking back, I did not.
It does
was
bug
confusing.
me, like to this day, like that we haven't heard more about Axes the Collector. Like this whole time, I remember like talking to my brother, like because I was going through the book for the first time and just being like,
We
Yo,
saw
what,
him.
when does this guy come back? And like, he's like, who
We
are you
see
talking
him,
about?
We saw him. We did see him again. We saw him on the Reshi Isles.
Right, but it's just like, what is his deal? What is he doing there? Who is he?
He's collecting.
He's hanging out. He's doing research. I think he's doing research on the. He was doing research on the great shells, the islands that they live on.
He's definitely just a super interesting character to me because isn't he like tattooing himself to remember stuff? Like,
And he's immortal.
Sometimes.
He's also like immortal. You like can't kill him.
Yeah.
wild.
Okay. Well, is there anything else we would like to talk about in relation to these 4 chapters? Really quickly, I've got 2 people who say most likely that Dalinar is a sliver.
Most likely.
But I will
That's
agree,
not-
we've got no confirmation, not even a WoB yet.
Yeah.
I'm going to add that to the list of WoBs. Where do we have our list of WoBs? Potential WoBs. There it is.
I had a potential wob. Is there like an Alethi eye color chart to tell which colored eyes would be light and dark?
I think that's fairly easy, isn't it?
Well, like I have gray eyes.
You're a witch.
So there.
A Voidbringer. A Voidbringer.
I was trying to decide which way I would be. Like I can't
I
tell.
actually kind of have an answer to this. So how they determine like light eyes versus dark eyes, part of it is that not only are they light in like color, but they also like it's remnants from the people who were the surge binders previously, whose eyes essentially like glowed like bright, like with this when they held stormlight, and so their eyes are actually like have like a light,
Oh, I got you.
like
Almost like a cat eye if you like shine a light at it,
yeah.
where it's like kind of glowing a
Sources,
bit. It's
please.
reflective.
That's what I remember
wonder-
hearing about. I remember hearing about that.
Sources.
I will try to find the sources.
Okay,
Because
we don't need
that
to get
don't
into
make
it.
no kind of sense whatsoever.
We
The
don't
only reason
have
I
to
brought
get
this
into-
up is because I thought of it today, and I was like, "Hey, I'll ask these guys on the podcast tonight." It has
So,
nothing to do with
it-
anything.
It comes from the idea of the stormlight leaking out of the eyes or whatever in their culture.
Yes, so
But-
here. I think.
Do we think that the reason the eyes change color is because there's now light in the eyes, and that in order for it not to make you blind, that that your body changes your eye color into something more glassy that allows light to travel through it easily? Is there an actual reason for why it does it?
Perhaps, but nothing that's been expressly like defined that I'm aware of.
Because I doubt Brandon doesn't do anything without a real reason. We'll just leave it at that.
But it says gray.
But the reason that I like question it is because we see brown-eyed dark eyes and tan-eyed light eyes, and when Moash picks up the blade and summons it, his eyes bleed from brown to tan. We see a similar thing with Kaladin, who's got dark blue eyes until he starts to invest, and then his eyes become light blue. So it's not the color, it's
The opacity.
Yeah.
the hue. Not the hue. God damn it. What's the...
It sounds like a reflectiveness to me. It's like it sounds like otherworldly. It's like something we wouldn't even have on our world.
Saturation?
Saturation.
Yeah. Also, I want to point out that the reason. So, this is from the Coppermind.
Okay.
I would like to say.
Welcome to our Mistborn review.
Let us open our hymnals to www.
Is that when someone gets a shard blade, the color that the shard bearer's eyes changes depends on the specific type of blade that they are bonded to. So Moash's eyes don't turn tan because his eyes were originally brown. They turn tan because of the blade that he's bonded to.
Okay, so when Sadius gets the blade,
Sadius already has light eyes,
right?
so it
But
doesn't matter.
if your eye color changes when you bond a blade to reflect the blade bond
the dark
or the type
eyes,
of blade,
dark eyes.
why only dark eyes?
Because I think it's because that
The light eyes are already close enough.
I think it's because the
Because it has to do with the light that shines in, and if you already
Can't
have
invest a
something
fully
that works,
invested
then it doesn't
gemstone.
need to be changed. The enemy of good is always just a bit better.
Logical inconsistency. I do not like it.
No, it has to do with I think it has to do with their ancestry. It's the fact that the light eyes have Knights Radiant in their ancestry who were
I've got sword in my
that
blood.
Genetic trait of that light eyes has already passed on to
But if
them,
that's the
and
case,
it is more dominant than them bonding a blade and it changing their eye color. But with the dark eyes, their eyes can change from dark to light. There isn't a way for the eyes to change from light to dark. There's only a way for your eyes to change from dark to light.
But if that's the case, then we should see Light Eyes who make a Nile bond get their eye color changed to reflect their order.
I think that they do.
Show me.
I don't know if it's been mentioned,
I
but
can't think of an example.
I would
I don't like
would
it.
think that they would. I think that they would. Because
Well, until I see it
Kaladin's-
happen, I'm sticking with
Kaladin's-
my thing because
Kaladin's eyes are brown. Kaladin's eyes are not blue. They're brown.
are they?
Yes, they're brown.
Okay.
Yeah, I was gonna say Kaladins are brown, right? They aren't blue.
Yeah, they're brown.
I thought they were dark blue.
No, they're brown.
Okay. I can be wrong. That happens.
Kay never says that.
I can be wrong sometimes. Listen.
There's an interesting thread that I haven't read at all, but somebody's just asking, why does Elikar's eye change colors multiple times? I don't remember that.
Well, let's stop at the Stormlight Archive Light Eyes argument.
It always comes back to the Stormlight Archive.
That's where we get a lot of answers. But anything else
Yeah.
for these 4 chapters of Mistborn? Mistborn.
Mistborn.
No, I think we've obviously covered everything about it that we're going to cover if we've moved on to everything else.
I have a sliver of a comment I want to make. I just think it was really clever of Brandon. Remember how we said in chapter 5 he was like reminding everybody of everything from the. He has like one line where Elend is like making fun of Vin a little bit. He's like, "Oh yeah, and we have the mists on our side too, right? Like that's a power." I thought that's so clever. Just like, "Oh yeah, that is a thing. Don't forget." Like this only came up like one time.
Little details.
still-
like
still
Palm
a
being
thing.
there.
Dark brown. Look
Yeah.
at that. All right.
Okay. Well, that's just about to cover it for this episode. Thank you so much for joining us in our ramblings and predictions. We cannot wait to cover what is next. This has been Cosmere Connections, and we hope to see you next time.
Bye bye.
Have a good one.
I am big.
I take it John's going to be taking all the Koloss chapters from now on.
All right.